Hey friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I have a pretty pink Posh video to share with you, and I'm going to have a little fun for the 25th by using some of the Christmas products that have been previously released from Pretty Pink Posh, as well as a few not necessarily Christmas things, but can be used for the holidays. So I'm going through all the different products I have today. I have the Merry Script die, the Mitten Shaker die, Pierced Snowflakes die, Stitch Torn Rectangles die set, the Aqua Shimmer and Purple Shimmer Confetti mixes, as well as the Pastel Party Shaker beads. So I'm going to start with some die cutting. So I'm going to use the largest of the Stitch Torn Rectangles to create a panel, and I'm actually going to create a shaker panel rather than using the mitten itself as the shaker. That will make sense as I die cut, but I'm going to be using the largest and this mitten to create the panel. But first I want to add these fun details from the Pierced Snowflakes die. So I'm going to use some kind of aqua tealishy colored cardstock that I thought matched the Aqua Shimmer Confetti mix pretty well. And I'm going to run it through again with the large Stitch Torn Rectangle and my mitten, again to create the front part of my shaker panel. So I'll go ahead and run those through my die cutting machine, and I'm going to go ahead and save my mitten for a future card. I don't want to waste that. That's such a great piece for a future mitten Christmas card. So this will be the front of my shaker panel, but I want to add some details. So I'm going to grab some sparkly white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut my mitten and my snowflake out so I can create a fun little snowflake on the front and just add more details to my mitten shaker. So now I'm going to die cut my sentiment, which is going to be this Merry Script die, and I'm die cutting it out of a green and purple that I thought matched the Pastel Party Shaker beads and the Purple Shimmer Confetti mix pretty well. And I die cut the word Merry out of both, but I don't know which one I want to use yet to be the inside of my shaker panel, so I'm going to leave those out and come back to it. I did want to add a little splatter to my shaker panel, so I have some white ink. This is from Spellbinders. It was in a kit, but you can find some really great white splatter inks out there. And I'm just going to splatter it. I mix some of the paint with water, and I'm going to splatter it all over the front of my panel. I set it aside to dry for a bit, but I had a few pretty big drops on there, so I'm just using a paper towel to kind of soak up some of those larger paint drops, as I don't have, well, I'm an impatient crafter and I didn't want to sit for much longer waiting for my panel to dry. I have an A2 card base, and I'm going to get that ready. It's just out of some sturdy white cardstock, and I have my acetate that I'm going to use to create the shaker panel. So I do know that I need my shaker panel to be larger than the mitten, or the acetate panel, I should say. So I'm so sorry this is off camera a bit, but I'm just using some large scissors to cut a panel larger than my mitten. So now I'm going to decide that I think I like the purple the best for the background of my mitten. The green was also pretty, but I just really love the teal and the purple together. So now I'm going to cut what will be the back side of my shaker, just free cutting, so it's larger than the glove opening of my shaker out of that purple cardstock. So now let's get to layering everything together and creating the shaker panel. So I'm going to turn my mitten panel upside down, and I'm going to grab some double-sided adhesive. This is a 1/4 inch, and I'm just going to tear pieces and go all the way around my mitten. It does not need to be perfect in any way because the shaker bits are going to be on the other side of the acetate. So this is just to make sure that this acetate is firm and adhered to the back of my panel. So I went all the way around the mitten opening, and I peeled off all of the release paper, and now I'm adding my panel, also making sure that it won't stick out past the edges of my the front of my shaker panel. I'm, really pressing down, making sure that acetate is not going anywhere. And now I'm going to work on adding foam adhesive around the mitten. Now, I was a little silly goose and forgot to take into consideration that the top muff part of my mitten does not need to have any shaker bits. So I'm going to take this foam adhesive I've peeled off both sides of the release paper so I can easily kind of curve it and turn it around the design. But I'm going around the top opening of the mitten, kind of, again, not remembering that I'm not going to have any shaker elements there. So you don't really need to go fully around the whole mitten, but this is just what I did. So I took foam adhesive, made sure that it was fully enclosed for the shaker bits, and then added foam adhesive to the corners around my glove so that way there was stability when I attach this to my card base. I'm going to add that purple piece of cardstock, just going to use some adhesive on the back and place that to the card base, making sure I take into consideration that it will be fully covered or just be the backing of my mitten. So I'm going to grab the different elements that I have to create my shaker mix. Again, I have the Aqua Shimmer Confetti, and I'm doing this a little bit the hard way by not having my well that I created of my mitten to keep all my shaker elements in place. So this is where I remember that I made my shaker panel a little too big, or my shaker well a little too big. So I'm going to grab some additional foam adhesive and just kind of cut off right where the mitten kind of turns into the cuff or the muff of the mitten. So I am going to create a little kind of opening in my confetti to pour in the beads. I did add a little bit more to the confetti as I was filling it up. I realized that this was a much bigger shaker panel than I was picturing when I started adding the confetti. So I am just making sure that my confetti is out of the way of my foam adhesive and went ahead and attached that panel. And I'm giving it a good shake, making sure that none of my shaker beads or confetti mix will come out anywhere, and it seems to be working quite nicely. So now we're going to finish adding in the elements of our shaker by putting in the outline die of the mitten. So I'll go ahead and add my adhesive. I added it to the cuff part of my mitten, and now I'm just using liquid adhesive to add around that thinner frame part of the mitten. I'll go ahead and place that right inside the opening. It's attaching to acetate, so it takes a little time to dry and stick. So I'm just applying some pressure to make sure that that piece is nice and adhered. For the snowflake, since it has a lot of fine detail points and as well as my sentiment, I'm going to bring back out that liquid adhesive and I'm going to attach my snowflake to the mitten. So again, just using a fine point, and I'm adding adhesive along the back of my snowflake, and then I'm using some tweezers just to help hold it because it's so dainty, and use that to place that onto the card. For my Merry sentiment, I die cut it out of purple and green, but I want the green to be the primary sentiment this time, just because I already have purple as the back of my mitten. So I'm going to add liquid adhesive to the back of my green sentiment first, so very similar to how I added the glue to the snowflake, and then I'm going to adhere it to the top of the purple, just slightly off centering it so that way the purple looks kind of like a drop shadow, and then I'm adding my adhesive to the back of the purple and gluing this to the card. So the green really kind of stands up against the white and the teal with that purple also showing through. So I applied some pressure, made sure my sentiment adhered nicely to my card, and here's a close-up of this fun, quick and easy Christmas shaker card. I hope this holiday video brought you some inspiration for the 25th of the month for this month, and here is one more close-up photo of my adorable little mitten shaker card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!